no, this is not an Illuminate confirmed drawing here. I'm just illustrating this with his characterization of the two different views, right? So in the traditional paradigm, the ancient medieval world, Christianity, right? The world is structured. The world is ordered, right? Whether you're a Platonist, whether you're Aristotelian, whether you're even a polytheist, right? Or a Christian, in a generic sense, the structure of reality is this, right? There's the lowest levels of reality and humankind and so forth. There might be angels, there might be gods, there might be metaphysical principles. And then there's, God, the one, whatever, up here at the top that sort of, whether it's creation or whether it's just a hierarchical structure of reality, reality is structured in this kind of a way, right? And so therefore the whole is ordered by the principle at the top. Okay, I'm not saying that means that natural theology is true. I'm not saying that we believe Platonism. I'm not saying that we're Masons because it's a dang triangle here. I'm just saying that this is a commonality amongst the general structure of how people in the ancient and medieval world understood reality to be structured. And the reason that the whole was structured that way was, again, because of this, right? So this is what he means by the top down. And so the principle at the top is what orders the whole, even though within the whole there might be the appearance of, disorder here, disorder here, disorder here, right? The X's being the disorder. We may not know the specific instances as to why there's disorder here or disorder here or here, but in terms of the whole, because we don't have the whole picture, we can still posit, right, that there is still meaning and structure even for the disorder, right? And I think that in a sense, without going too far with this argument, you could make the case that chaos or disorder does assume order, right? It's a privative, parasitic notion that relies on the principle of order. So you couldn't even talk about disorder without order, right? Or in statistics, right, we have randomness. Randomness presupposes that there's also order by which to distinguish the randomness, right? So these are kind of like just sort of basic philosophical correlations that seem to require one another. Now, over here in this position that he's positing, the chief problem that I'm going to note, well, first of all, these are metaphysical concepts, right? What has this guy talked about? Purpose, evolving, progress. None of this stuff is material. None of this stuff is given to you in sense data. There's literally nowhere in an amalgamation of sense data that you can find the value judgment of progress or that we have evolved, right? It doesn't exist. You see, that's an interpretation of the data. So first of all, he's wanting to do a little sleight of hand with you, which he doesn't even realize, which is to reinterject metaphysical principles, but at the same time turn around and say, we don't do metaphysics anymore. That doesn't exist. That's medieval stuff. We don't do that anymore. We just do the data, right? We do the scientific data. Excuse me, there's no scientific data that's telling you what progress is, right? Or giving you value judgments. Obviously, there is no ought from the fact that there is an is, right? The way things are doesn't tell you the way things ought to be. Especially not from just bare sense data, right? But another more devastating problem, well, that's pretty devastating, but an equally devastating problem for this mistaken bottom-up position of emergent order is this idea that because we've jettisoned this, really all we need is to just look at the immediate bottomed up sense data, and it's going to just kind of give the inner appearance of order, right? So again, we don't really know if the order actually exists in these things, but the way they typically talk is that we'll treat it as if it does, right? So they're going to say, we're not interested in the metaphysical justification of these things. We'll just act like there's order in these things, right? Even though there's not. We'll act like species exist, even though they don't really exist. Those are just taxonomical classifications. And so then here's the problem, right? So let's say we are beginning to classify these things from the bottom up. First of all, this position doesn't allow you to have any claim about the whole, you see. Because first of all, this is a position that starts from sense data. It's an empiricist position. So it's a severely limiting position in terms of the information and data that you can have. And so it literally cannot make any kind of holistic universal claims, whether you think they're justified or not, right? On the older position, this one literally can't do that. It's impossible. So it actually can't tell you that there is no order. It can only say that it's not known or unknown, right? Even though at the same time they turn around and say, like, they act like they know that there is no order, right? But order is just kind of this principle that's kind of working itself out from within in certain cases. And there's a lot of, see the X's, there's a lot of disorder going on in here too. But perhaps we're moving from a world of pure disorder, chaos, that's evolving to order, right? And this, right, well, so pure chaos is kind of evolving up into greater and greater levels of complexity. But now, wait a minute. As we saw a minute ago, greater levels of complexity is not the same thing as order. As with everything in this position, it's an interpretation of the data. This position from the outset already tells you you cannot know if things in the world out there are actually themselves ordered or are ordering. You don't actually know if that's the case. You can't know if that's the case. But we'll just act like you can and pretend that you can. But here's the thing is that without, so can I know that, let's say that the white spaces, right? The black spaces here represent disorder. The white represents order, right? Let's say as we're going up the pyramid, right? We're going to act like there's more and more. Right, so there's more and more, the black here representing the disorder, the white representing more and more, quote, order as we move up, right? The classification of reality. What is it, the principle that I'm appealing to, right? To classify the white things as order, right? In terms of the patterns, this is pattern recognition, right? What am I appealing to? Let me make the skippy thing smaller. What am I appealing to that is the common principle or trait or essence, or, well, you don't believe in essences, but what's the commonality between the things that are white and ordered and the things that are not ordered? The problem is that anytime I start to list the properties that I think, right, they are going to be, again, arbitrary interpretations that don't actually tell me if this thing shares it in common with this thing, right? And in order for me to say that there is a common, that this pattern of A, B, C, D, E of events or objects in the world, that pattern is ordered, means that there is some universal thing that it has or possesses. Even if I just think that they're traits, right, and I don't think they're actually in the world, I'm still positing that there's at least the appearance of some commonality. But even if you were to restrict this to pure appearances, which, by the way, is preposterous, it means the whole worldview doesn't tell you anything about the world, but they don't actually care about that. They're not interested in that. The point is that there still appeals to things that are universal, that are metaphysical. And this is a fundamentally an anti-metaphysical position. What is the thing that is the pattern, right? So you can't do top-down ordering or bottom-up ordering without the ability to abstract or to know or to predicate commonality. Commonality of what? These 10 things are birds. So what's a bird? Feathers, weighs about this, 2 legs. Okay, so but the this set of molecules isn't this set of molecules? What is the thing that's common between them? Exactly. Right. Oh, it's a pattern recognition. Pattern of what? Pattern of recognizing blank. What is a pattern of what? Because you can't just list off the things that are, in this case, right? This bird, oh, he's got feathers and he's got a beak. And, okay, and then what's the unique aspect? Oh, he's got feathers and he's got a beak. Oh, really? But that was the same thing, you see. Right? So one in many. This is the problem of the one in the many. Does this system escape metaphysics and the problem of the one in the many by just simply positing that we're throwing out the concrete absolute organizing principle on this side of the thing? We just throw that out and then it just does it itself. This is a bait and switch. Don't you see how absurd and ludicrous that, I mean, at least this paradigm makes sense, right? You might question it. It might not always be justified in terms of the different ancient medieval systems. But, I mean, this makes some sense as to how there's order, right? At least within this entire perspective paradigm of interpreting the universe, we could see how it's possible to have order. This excludes from the outset any real order at all. I mean, it's ludicrous. But this is what passes for genius. Like, the whole world is organized around this ridiculous paradigm. It's amazing.
As genes interact, you can get patterns emerging which are fascinating and which solve problems and which produce functional order.
No, they don't. It produces a functional order. It produces patterns. None of those things give this guy what he thinks it gives him. It's just restating. It's like saying, we know that matter has meaning because there's matter with meaning. It's basically what he's saying.
And symmetry and beauty and all these other wonderful things we see in the world.
Symmetry, beauty, but there's no purpose. So the symmetry and the beauty, which is the pattern recognition, isn't actually in the world because there is no purpose. There's no actual commonality between the things. This is just literally one sentence is refuted by the next sentence, and he just does like a back and forth. This is wild.
But there is nobody in charge of the process, and there is no destination. It's a wonderful journey, and we don't know where it'll take us. Thank you very much.
I don't know who that was.
Thank you very much.